Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video.
MD77 with lots to say. So I'm going to start with you, MD, because you were here bright and early. I knew that. I popped in to take a little glance as I was running around. So let's see what's going on. And for anybody who pops in and doesn't know who I am, Stephanie Joy with Joy Disability and the channel All Things Social Security. All right. So MD says, new pain doctor asked me if I had leg weakness. I answered him honestly, I didn't know that I had heaviness and fatigue in my legs. He did no manual muscle testing except the L4 quads. My problems, and I'll keep reading, too, are the L5 and S1. That's not the issue, remember, is about the functional limitations, though. So just try not to focus on which discs it is, because it honestly really doesn't matter, as long as there is a diagnosis that would cause it, right? And MD77 goes on to say, now I'm afraid he wrote all my muscles are 5 without testing them. He doesn't have a patient portal, so I cannot see what he wrote. You can order his records. You know, I don't know that it's going to be free, depending on your state, is whether he can charge you. But, you know, if you use that high-tech HIPAA form of release and have them sent right to you or the fax number you want or the email you want, there is a big limit on what they can charge for those digital versions of your records versus a paper printed type of physical copy. But going back to your problem or your first question, new pain doctor asked me if I had leg weakness. I answered him, I honestly didn't know. I think your problem is probably that you didn't know how to describe it. Probably, heaviness. Why do they feel heavy? Because you're weaker, right? When we're weaker, everything seems heavy. So I bet you do have weakness. I mean, that would just be if I was a betting woman, that would be my bet. I mean, fatigue. When your legs are tired, can you go and do 50 jumping jacks or whatever you can do when you weren't tired? Would your legs be strong enough to do 50 jumping jacks or climb 5 flights of stairs? I mean, sometimes you got to use a little bit of that common sense that they've kind of stripped away from us, right? So it's not your fault. They've kind of beaten it out of us, but I don't know. So in the future, give it some thought. Can your legs, if you do squats, that's an easy thing to test at home. How many can you do? If you do after one, are your legs super tired? Do you feel shaky? Then you probably have weakness. You know, if it's not just, oh, it hurts, it's a pain in my back, that would be pain. That's not necessarily weakness, but just some things to think about. You know, like you didn't know that he was going to ask that probably. So, and he goes on to say, also the Social Security CE examiner, Dr. Foster, said once that you did not have to have muscle weakness with radicular problems to win SSDI. I agree. Now, at the lower levels, you'll see some of those canned denial letters on initial and recon. People get really upset about this, and I always say, don't even worry about your denial letter, what's in it. It's just a canned letter, and they pull out any of their optional reasons for denial if they didn't find it in the record. Because you will see denials all the time that say, oh, you have some limitations, but we don't see significant weakness. And there are still things you can do. And I've seen this one. And you can move your limbs about. Yeah, I can. Does that mean I can do a job? I mean, that's not the reason why I can't do a job, because, you know, there's other reasons, right? So, or why you can't sustain a certain activity that would be the job. So I agree with the CE examiner. Radicular problems, that extends into other limbs. You know, often it is weakness. Let's say it's radicular into your legs. That often is weakness, numbness, tingling, pain. So, but if you get the denial on initial and recon, and MD, I don't know where you're at in the process. It has no bearing per se on your ultimate strength in your case. So I don't know what the ultimate strength of your case is. I don't know your vocational profile or your medical records, but you definitely want to stick to it. So the CE doctor for MD77 said you win from other spinal disorders involving the spinal root. That's possible. He can't tell you whether you win or not, obviously, MD, because he doesn't make the decision. But if he was speaking about you personally, it sounds like he feels strongly in some way to be talking about it like that with you. And he does know, unless he's really, really not up to snuff on his job, he knows exactly what things he says support getting you pigeonholed into the spot you need to be to win versus any other statement about a certain matter that means you're not pigeonholed in. So if they were to believe him, if they were to rely on him, and they don't always, they would go with what he says, and it's either, you know, it that piece of the puzzle makes you fit into the disabled slot, or he said something that actually puts you outside of the disabled slot. And again, they don't have to buy what he's selling, but they usually do on initial and recon. I mean, usually. Good or bad? No, I should say bad for sure. Good, not necessarily. Yeah, but that is something you can use at ALJ hearing, like even the CE says blah, blah. MD77 says, new pain doctor is doing an ESI. ESI, I think he's talking about an epidural steroid injection. I was concerned the muscle weakness wouldn't show up on EMG because of my symptoms being so sensory. You know, yeah, I mean, I get your concerns because tingling, but those other problems of tingling and numbness in foot are also very troublesome. I would give some thought to your day to day. Do your muscles get weak? Are you less strong with your legs than you used to be? And maybe your hand grip and stuff like that. And can you do it for as long? Can you grip as long as you could, or does weakness come in? And then you can complain about weakness. You know, I know you want to say, well, I feel like it's heaviness. Well, I don't know. Maybe go to a rowing machine where you're sitting down and they're not like on your feet, but you're using your legs. Is there weakness? I don't really know. You'd almost have to ask like a physical therapist. How would I determine? Why don't you chat GPT? Why don't you see what others are saying about how to determine weakness from a home layperson point of view, which is not so bad actually. Not for starters anyway. MD says, I've read EMG doesn't pick up sensory too. Well, you know, I'm not an EMG specialist, so I don't know. If you're reading from authoritative medical sources, I think that's good. Obviously, it picks up nerve activity. And nerve activity is related to all of that. And when nerves are active in a way that's not normal, that's an abnormal EMG. And that's what we're looking for. And by the way, MD, a lot of times the sensories, they do that with that touch with their hands. So